So if you're not familiar with the city of Harrisburg, first, welcome. Second, if you're not familiar with our demographics, first, I really appreciate all the comments you made about diversity, inclusion. The city of Harrisburg is a predominantly black and brown community with a median income of $33,000 a year, 7% unemployment rate. And plus half of the land in the city is hosted by the Commonwealth, which is non-taxable. So the Commonwealth does reimburse. However, we have an aging infrastructure, and we've gotten in some trouble with DEP over stormwater runoff going into the Susquehanna. But currently, the Commonwealth does not pay stormwater fees, and was hoping we could have a conversation to address not just the city of Harrisburg, but any municipality, frankly, that the Commonwealth is present in or has a president and paying stormwater fees. And if the budget addressed that, or if you could maybe elaborate on the administration's position on that.
I don't think that it does. I don't think the budget addresses that. But it is a conversation I think that we'd like to have. Certainly DEP does not regulate stormwater fees. Stormwater fees are the municipality's decision whether they implement them or not. I know there was a recent court case that came out related to this, but I can certainly have our chief counsel, reach out and we can certainly have that conversation.
I am, as many of my colleagues have been, I was a local elected official prior to joining the General Assembly, and I had to make a tough vote on a stormwater fee and burden my residents with a stormwater fee. And I certainly appreciate and respect the DEP's role as a regulating agency. I certainly respect the necessity that we have to clean up our waterways, our rivers, creeks, and our streams. But I will say, I do not appreciate at all ratepayers solely bearing that burden with no help from the state or the federal government. And we had to do that because the consequence of not doing so was massive fines from the Environmental Protection Agency and the Department of Environmental Protection. Can we get a commitment that going forward, I know, it was stated that there's nothing in this budget to help municipalities with stormwater fees or help municipalities with grants or anything around stormwater, but can we get a commitment in future years, please, that these are statewide resources that must be protected, and it's going to take all of us. In Susquehanna Township, for example, we've partnered with Lower Paxton Township and Capital Region Water to meet our obligations for TMDL, sediment reduction, et cetera, everything that's being asked of us. And that's been a cost-saving measure because we're doing it collaboratively. But I will say it does not come without pain and without difficulty. So can we have some help in the future?
I think that's probably the hardest question we've gotten all day, right? Because I think it touches on an incredibly important concept, which we all know and struggle with. And look, I was a city manager, so I feel the pain, right? These are unfunded mandates, right?
That is correct.
It's what they are, and there are things that create difficult situations for all of us. I think the commitment you have from me is to play that same role, whether it's key legislation, but to be the honest broker for the environment and what's best for the environment. How we get there, I need to be relatively agnostic about. I feel the pain of municipalities, but I also understand that the rules that we make locally here, specifically in Harrisburg and elsewhere, and if I was to make some of those rules in Philadelphia when I was there, need to be universally applied kind of across Pennsylvania, and those create great challenges for you when you're talking about a major investment on the part of the state and this entity to do that in a way that don't know how you do it on that level of scale statewide, practically speaking, without it becoming a financial burden. I think that's the balance and the difficulty. And look, we make decisions and tough choices like that all the time. But I certainly think that what you really need is not a commitment from me. What you need is a commitment from all of government, including the governor and you guys and everyone, to work together on an issue as big as that, right? I think it matters, and it's an unfunded mandate, and we have to figure out whether we want to fund it or not. And that's a collective decision and a really big, important one.
Yeah, I mean, I hope to use my platform and hope to get the support of others to move in that direction.
Can I just add really
absolutely.
quickly? This kind of relates similar to the question about wastewater facilities. So IIJA, the federal infrastructure bill, provided $71 million to Penvest this year for clean water. On top of the existing money that they have, Penvest does have the ability to give grants and small loans for both wastewater and for stormwater. So definitely there is money available. It's just at Penvest.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. I will certainly inform my municipalities about the municipalities that I represent about that possibility, and I thank you for hearing me out. I understand the complexity of the issue, but I really that was a 3-4 year process that was so difficult, and it is not like yes, residents of the region are paying for this, but we're not going to erect a fence around the Paxton Creek and say, hey, this is only for our use because we're doing this. This is a shared resource, and there must be shared fiscal responsibility.